Keir would be the first to admit that when it comes to kind of oratorical heights, he's never going to be Barack Obama. But I thought it was a very, very good conference speech. What I like to see in a party conference speech is a leader who seems to be comfortable in his own skin, who's speaking to the country, even though he's having to do it through the party, and where there is a real sense of values and a sense of what that person is in relation to what he wants to do for the country. And I thought that came through. I thought he told a lot about himself, but in a way that related to why he's in politics, what he wants to do in politics. And I do think the contrast with Boris Johnson will come across very clearly to people. I actually think Boris Johnson is a bad person, but I thought it was an interesting line of attack from Keir to say it's not that he's a bad person, he's a trivial person. And I think that what you saw through this speech and what we're seeing, across the debate every day is we're facing some really, really big, serious challenges, and we don't have a serious Prime Minister and a serious government. And Keir Starmer was saying, that's what I would bring. And, I thought as a conference speech, I thought it worked very, very well.
Was there enough of substance there? Because obviously he's trying to paint himself as a credible opponent to the Prime Minister. And he did bash Boris Johnson and, said what you reiterated there. But was that enough to win people over in terms of, was there enough substance in his speech about what Labour would do, Labour policies, how they plan to improve people's lives?
I actually think there was, for a party conference speech, there wasn't that much knocking of his opponents, and I thought what knocking there was fairly effective. And I think that it's always very difficult with a conference speech, even with one as long as that. And I think with all the applause and the standing ovations, it came to something close to an hour and a half, so as long as a football match. And you're speaking to the party, you're trying to get the party to move in a certain direction, but most importantly, you're trying to speak to the country. Now, what the country are not going to listen to is a kind of shopping list of then we'll do this and then we'll do this and then we'll do this. I think you want to give a sense of who and what you are and what are the big things that you want to do. So, for example, somebody like me who works in the mental health advocacy field, that was music to my ears. There'll be a lot of people like that he really was putting mental health there. Something like education, he was putting out a sense of what the policy direction is going to be, and he was making some pretty big commitments there, and likewise on the climate crisis and so forth. So you're putting out priorities, you're saying the kind of direction that you're going in, but I think he did that well without it becoming a sort of, a policy shopping list. So I certainly think it was a very substantial speech and a serious speech. And fair enough, I think the hecklers that you mentioned, I think they played into his hands, because the one thing the public want to know when they've rejected a party in an election as roundly as Labour were rejected 2 years ago, they want to know that party's listening and they're going to change a bit. And, if you've got people saying, don't change, don't dare change, and Keir's saying, you shout what we want, we're changing, that's a very positive message for the country, I think.
He was very ambitious, wasn't he, saying that he thought that Labour could beat the Conservatives at the next general election. And in doing that, he tackled all the major topics that people are thinking about now. The fuel crisis, the future of social care, mental health provision, you touched on there, education. He said he was tempted to mention it 3 times. He resisted. Do you think that is too high an ambition, or with what he delivered today, will the Labour Party have a sense of, actually, yes, we can?
Well, they should do, because the fact, look, the last election was a disaster, and it's a long way to come back from that. But I do think we're living in very volatile times. I do think this government is absolutely there for the taking. I think Boris Johnson is emerging as the worst possible Prime Minister for this country at the worst possible time. He's got a cabinet full of people that are there because they're loyal to him or because they're willing to repeat all the nonsense and the lies that he tells about Brexit and everything else. And the Labour Party is the only other party that can win. Now, it's going to be a very, very tough challenge, and he knows that. But I think actually what has to happen now, in a way, I thought that was in a sense, I understand that COVID's made it difficult, but that was really, I think, the start of something there today. And what has to happen now, I think, is that he and the Labour Party have to show the kind of energy and the kind of commitment and the kind of fight that they've been showing in the last few days. The public have now got to see that day after day after day after day, because you do not win general elections when it comes to a campaign. You win a general election during the Parliament, not at the end of it. And I think for me, even with all, I accept COVID has been difficult, as I say, but even with all that, for me, the Labour front bench has not been nearly energetic enough, not been nearly proactive enough, and not campaigning enough. You've got to campaign all the time. And I think if you could take that energy that was there today and take the messaging that was there today and turn it into non-stop campaigning against what I think is a pretty hopeless government, I think Labour does have a chance. But be realistic. There's no point going around saying we are going to win. You've got to say we want to win, we can win, but here's all the things we have to do.
Yeah, what should be the focus now? You talk about campaigning and really, as you mentioned, with COVID, a lot of people saying, where is Sir Keir Starmer, our new Labour leader? In his defence, you know, it was lockdown, it was COVID. He wasn't as visible as he would have been under normal circumstances. So where do you want to see him? He can't focus on everything. What should he focus on in the next few months?
Well, I think he actually answered that in the speech, I thought. When he talked about good society, you can't have the good society without the strong economy. You can't have the strong economy without the good society. Now, that's what I call a framing message. So what does the good society mean? What does the strong economy mean? How do we get that? I thought he spoke very well about how COVID exposed weaknesses that had been there for too long. I was pleased that he linked, even though Johnson's terrible, he actually said this is about a decade of Conservative rule. So focus on the weaknesses that have been exposed and how you, as leader of the Labour Party and the Labour Party, are going to address those. And actually, you say you can't do everything. It's true you can't do everything all of the time. But you can be engaged every single day on one of the big challenges that he set out there today. And I think it's important that now that he becomes much more visible than he's been, that the shadow cabinet becomes much more visible, that the front bench becomes much more visible. Because frankly, you know, in the last year or so, and caveat, of course, if there's a national crisis, the government is going to take centre stage all of the time. But actually, I think as we come out of the pandemic, as we now witness the disasters that Brexit is unleashing upon the country, David Lammy, so I interviewed David Lammy on television this morning on Good Morning Britain, and he said, I think we're getting into something more like normal politics. Well, normal politics means the opposition has to be out there on big themes and big issues every single day.